Now the question arises, what should be the discounting rate? Discount rate is the return expected by a market participant from a particular investment. So suppose I make investment in Government of India bond for 10 years. Maybe my expectation is to get 6.5% rate of return, something like that. But if I buy bonds of a company which is AA rated for 5 years, maybe my expectation is 8 or 8.5% per annum. If I buy a bond which is single A rated, maybe I will desire a return of 9 to 10% per annum. If I buy equity share in a very established company, maybe I will expect 12% per annum. But if I buy shares of a small company uh, which has business uncertainties, maybe I will expect 20-25% per annum return. So my expectation of return is broadly based on the risk I am taking. Discounting rate is the return expected by a market participant from a particular investment and shall reflect not only the time value of money but also the risk inherent in the asset being valued, as well as the risk inherent in achieving the future cash flow. If cash flows are very uncertain, rate is usually high. If the cash flows are quite certain, then the rate will be low. When we did business valuation, try to recall in case studies, a valuer shall determine weighted average return on asset to confirm the reasonableness of the discounting rate or WACC, so considered for valuation of intangible asset. VARA is the expected rate of return on a particular asset and can be determined based on riskiness involved for a particular asset. Probably you didn't get the second paragraph. Let me explain it in detail. Suppose a company is using equity share capital and debenture as a source of finance. And the weighted average cost of capital is, say, 18% per annum. So for business valuation, I may be using 18% per annum. When I do business valuation, it includes value of short-term tangible assets, long-term tangible assets, intangible assets, as well as goodwill. When I do business valuation, value of all tangible, intangible assets is included in the business value. And that's why weighted average cost of capital is deemed to be an appropriate rate of discounting for calculating present value of free cash flows to the firm. But if I'm making valuation of a particular asset, say the brand name or the customer relationship or a music album or a cricket franchisee, then the risk of an individual asset may be less than the risk of business as a whole, may be equal to risk of the business, or it may be more than the risk of the business. What does it mean if the overall cost, that is the weighted average cost of capital, is 18%? It doesn't mean that this rate is suitable for whole business. But if you are making valuation of individual asset, this rate may not be suitable because some of the assets of the business may be less risky and they deserve to be discounted with lower rate. Some of the assets of the business are as risky as the business itself and they should be discounted at WACC. And some of the assets of the business may be very risky and they should be discounted at a rate which is higher than the weighted average cost of capital. Let me give you one example for the same. Suppose a company is using equity share capital worth 15,000 crore rupees and its debenture capital, debt capital, short term as well as long term, is 5,000 crore rupees. Suppose the cost of equity for the company is 20% and suppose the post-tax cost of debt is 10%. Now, if you calculate weighted average, 20% will be assigned a weight of 15,000, 10% will be assigned a weight of 5,000, and the sum total of this will be divided by 20,000. So when you calculate weighted average, you can actually use the formula like this. I can show it to you. Sum product means multiplication and then addition. So 20% and 10%, sum product function should be multiplied by 5,000 and 20% and 10%, should be multiplied by 15,000 and 5,000 respectively, and then their sum total should be made. This is the sum product function in Excel. Divide by sum of which, so you can apply the sum function here, sum of which. So that's 17.5%. This is the weighted average cost of capital. If you are trying to make valuation of business as a whole, which includes fixed assets, working capital, brand, goodwill, everything, business as a whole, then WACC is a suitable discounting rate if free cash flow to firm are calculated. But if you're trying to make valuation of individual asset, like fixed asset individually, or making valuation of working capital, or brand, or goodwill, you will have to consider each of the things separately. Suppose your fixed assets are 5,000 crore rupees. Now I consider that fixed assets are less risky, and my judgment says that a 12.5% discounting rate is suitable. So, how can I judge 12.5% is suitable? See, it's based on your experience and the data available publicly on various websites. So, the kind of fixed asset company is using are also available on lease in the market. You're using the land, building, plant, machinery, furniture, fixture, vehicles. Those kind of fixed assets are available on lease also. And the lesser charges a rate of 12.5% to calculate the lease rent. I can say that yeah, 12.5% is suitable rate. What does it mean? That business as a whole is riskier than fixed asset as an individual investment. And that's why fixed asset deserves a lower discounting. Then suppose for making valuation of working capital, the appropriate discounting rate is say 10%. See, working capital is usually financed from short-term financing, short-term loans, debt, and cost of short-term debt is 10%. So I say, yeah, short-term loan cost is 10%. So working capital, suitable discounting rate is 10%, maybe. Then suppose I want to make valuation of the brand, and I feel that the brand as an asset is riskier than business as a whole, and my experience says that, my gut feeling says that a 2% extra risk premium should be added while calculating brand value. And accordingly, when I calculate value of brand, it appears to be 5,000 rupees. So they are interrelated. In practical life, this can be acquired from lease rate. This is the short term debt rate. This is based on your own judgment and experience. Now, goodwill can be valued as a balancing figure also. So 20,000 crore is the asset. Suppose you acquired this company for 20,000 crores by giving 15,000 crore of equity and 5,000 crores of debt. You got fixed asset, fair value 5,000, working capital fair value 2,000, a brand name you got in the business acquisition worth 5,000. You got assets worth rupees 12,000 crores while you paid consideration of 20,000 crore. So balancing figure 8,000 crore is the value of goodwill. So let's check what can be the rate of discounting for goodwill. See, now here, this is what VARA for fixed asset is 12.5%. Oh, sorry. VARA for working capital is 10%. VARA for brand is 19.5%. What is VARA for goodwill? I can take it as a balancing figure. See, if cost of this 20,000 crore is 17.5, this 20,000 crore should also be at 17.5, right? So I apply the same sum product formula. I can apply just a minute, equal to sum product. Just a minute, sorry. So all these rates, including the discounting rate for goodwill, which I don't know, should be assigned these weights. And the total should be divided by sum of weights, which is this one. Yeah, if you got confused, you can always, if anytime you have any confusion, you can always pause the video and watch it again. 9%. I want it to be equal to 17.5%. So what should be VARA for goodwill? So I can use the goal seek function. I go to the data tab. See, first of all, I make this one as the active cell, this one, discounting rate for goodwill. This is my active cell. This is my currently selected cell. Go to data tab. What if goal seek? Data, what if goal seek? In the goal seek, I want to set value of cell D10. No, I don't want to set value of D10. I want to set value of cell D11 to be 0.175. That's 17.5%. See, VARA and WAC, average VARA and WAC should be equal. By changing this cell, and I say okay, and I say okay, and this appears to be 21.25%. I repeat it again for you. I select this 9%, go to data, what if, goal seek, D11 should be 0.175. By changing this blank cell, okay, and okay. So this is average VARA. See, average VARA, sorry, just a minute. What I'm trying to say is average VARA should be equal to weighted average cost of capital. So, now I'll try to make sure that it tallies. So, for intangible asset, for brand, I'll use 19.5% discounting rate. Goodwill is calculated as a balancing figure anyways. This is the concept of VARA, right? If I say, no, this should be higher, it should be 3% higher in my experience. So then I'll have to recalculate VARA for goodwill, or maybe I should cross check always. Okay. So that's the concept of weighted average return on asset. So look at this. This is the enterprise value. Graphically, I'm explaining it again. This is the enterprise value. Suppose this much is debt and this much is equity. And you calculate the weighted average of cost of equity and cost of debt. And that is called WACC, weighted average cost of capital. Now, in balance sheet, the sum of debt and equity must be equal to sum of assets. So sum of debt and equity must be equal to working capital, fixed assets, intangible assets, and goodwill. And each single asset will have a different VARA, weighted average asset return. Each single asset will have a different discounting rate, and average of all those rates will be average weighted average return on asset. I can little bit improve the terminology. I can say this is VARA and this is RA, return on asset. So I can kind of, to improve language, I can say like this. Return on asset, return on fixed asset is 12.5%, return on working capital is 10, return on asset for brand is 19.5, return on asset for goodwill is 21.25, weighted average return on asset is 17.5. So VARA should be equal to WACC. This is better terminology. Okay. So for working capital, usually the discounting rate remains lowest. This is the risk. So usually working capital is least risky, fixed assets are riskier than working capital. Other intangible assets like brand, patent, copyright are riskier than fixed asset and goodwill is riskiest. So for working capital reward, that is lowest rate is used. For fixed asset, low discounting rate is used. For intangible asset, higher discounting rate is used. For goodwill, if it is calculated as a present value, if at all, then the highest discounting rate is used. Though usually it is calculated as a balancing figure. So for working capital, usually the short-term borrowing rate, which is after tax, is considered to be the appropriate discounting rate. For fixed assets, the lease rate or mortgage rate or asset-backed lending rate are considered to be the suitable discounting rate. For other intangible assets like brand name, cost of equity can be considered as the suitable discounting rate, cost of equity, right? Or not necessarily that it is always cost of equity. You can always also take weighted average cost of capital and add some risk premium to it based on the riskiness of the asset and your experience. But one thing is sure, that the rate of discounting for intangible assets remains between the discounting rate for fixed assets and discounting rate for goodwill, if at all goodwill is calculated as sum of present values. So for goodwill, the discounting rate will be higher than cost of equity, higher than weighted average cost of capital, higher than return on other assets because it is the riskiest asset. As far as the examination is concerned, discounting rate will be given to you, so you need not to worry about it. But a 1 mark MCQ can be definitely asked on this.